Good morning, class. Today we're going to do lesson 3.4, solving multi-step inequalities. All right, these are very similar from regular equations, except we have to remember that we have inequality, we have greater than and less than symbols, and sometimes we reverse those symbols. Remember, if we multiply or divide by a negative number, that's going to be our key here. So let's work through the first one here together. It's a two-step equation. We're going to solve for D. So first up, we're going to, good, subtract the 13. Get rid of the constant. Now, the minus sign in front of the 11 is going to stay there, so it's going to be negative 11D is greater than 79 minus 13, which is, excellent, 66. And then our final step, that's right, divide by negative 11. And when you divide by a negative number, this greater than is going to turn into a, that's right, less than or equal to. And 66 divided by negative 11, good, negative 6. All right, I want you to apply what we just did with B on your own. So please solve example B on your own. I'll give you 45 seconds. Ten seconds. All right, so let's begin. The first step in solving this two-step is, good, plus 23. Bring down your negative 4y. What is 19 and 23 put together? Good, 42. And the final step in this problem, that's right, divide by negative 4. So y is, oh, this less than's got to turn into a greater than because you divided by negative 4. Good, negative 10.5. Use your calculator if you don't get this when you divide. A positive divided by negative is going to be negative 10.5. All right, please write down B if you didn't have it already, but we're going to skip to the next slide now. All right, step 4, write and solve the inequality. So first off, we got to change the words into a problem. I'll give you a little bit of time here to copy down example number 2 before we do it together on the board. All right, number 2. 4 times a number plus 12 is less than a number minus 3. What's missing from this problem? What a number stands for. Nobody told me what letter to use. So you have to define your variable. So if you're going to use n, you better say n is a number. And now we can begin to write this problem. 4 times a number, so that's going to be 4, good, n, plus 12, plus sign of 12. Easy enough, right? Is less than. Now, because the word is, we're putting a less than sign, not a minus sign. Is less than. a number minus 3. So a number, of course, is n, and the minus 3 symbol. All right, so now that we've written our problem, we're going to attack and solve it. First up, we have n's on both sides. So if you remember from our lesson 2.4, we should eliminate the smaller variable. Which one's smaller, 4n or n? Of course, n is. And since n is positive, we're going to subtract n. 4n minus n is 3n. If you take one away, you're going to get 3. Next up, right, the 12. Minus 12 from both sides. So 3n not equal. Fix that. 3n is less than negative 3 minus 12 is negative 15. And then our final step, that's right, divide. And I'm just going to write this again over here since I'm running into my other problem. So we'll divide by 3, and you get n is less than negative 5. Notice that I did not switch the less than. The 3, I divided by 3, and 3 is positive. Don't care about the negative 15. Care about the 3. So n is less than negative 5. Okay? All right, so let's bring in B for you to do on your own. And we're going to need to scroll that up. All right, so please solve B on your own. I'll give you a minute and a half to write it out and then solve it. Thirty seconds. Okay, notice that I defined my variable because it didn't say in the problem which letter to use. So I said n, there's a number in there twice. I said n is my number. Now I'm going to write out the problem. 7 minus 7 minus 2 times a number. A number's n, so 2 times n is less than symbol. 3 times the number, so 3 times n, 3 times the number, plus 32. I've now written out my problem, and now I can approach and solve it. Smaller variable on both sides. Let's see, I got a 3n and a negative 2. Well, negative is always going to be smaller. So I'm going to add 2n. I get 7 is less than 5n 3n plus 2n is 5n plus 32. Constant, that's going to be the 32. So subtract 32. 7 minus 32. Good. Negative 25 is negative 25 is less than 5n. And then the final step, divide by the 5. Negative 25 divided by 5 is negative 5, is less than n, but you can't finish it there. The n has to be written first. So n is greater than. When you got to reverse it when you switch it like that. I didn't switch it because the 5 was positive. That means I left it the same. I switched it because the n was written last. You got to reverse that. All right, so finish writing this one down. And we're going to move on to the next slide. I'll let you write down example number 3, and then we'll solve it together. All right, let's take a look at A. We got a lot of parentheses here, so we're going to have to work through the parentheses. If we start with the 8, leave it alone, and then minus the parentheses. When you have a minus outside parentheses, distributive property says turn the parentheses into its right opposite. So it goes from being C to negative C, and it's going to go from plus 3 into, that's right, minus 3. Okay, the minus on the outside of the parentheses turned everything inside the parentheses into its opposite. Now let's look at the other side. 6c, that's going to stay the same, plus distributive property, 3 times 2 is 6. Distributive property, 3 times negative c, minus 3c. Now we got to look at combining like terms. Left side, we have an 8 and minus 3. What is 8 minus 3? Good, that's 5. So 5 minus c less than or equal. Now let's look over on the right side. Like terms, 6c minus 3c. What is 6 minus 3? Good, that's 3. So 3c plus 6. You've now combined like terms on both sides. The next step is to, good, so get rid of or eliminate the smaller variable. Which variable is smaller? The negative c or the 3c? Right, the negative c. And a negative c we'll get rid of by adding c. That's the opposite. So 5 will be less than or equal to 3c plus c makes, good, 4c. And then the constant, right, subtract 6. 5 minus 6 is negative 1. Less than or equal to 4c. I'm going to need a little space here. And then That's right. Divide by 4. Now, you don't actually have to divide by 4. You can leave the fraction. You can leave it as negative 1/4. However, the C has to be written first. And when you switch the variable around and the number, you got to switch the less than to a greater than or equal to. So your answer is C is greater than or equal to negative 1/4. Now, you could have made that a decimal, a negative 0.25 would also be acceptable. All right, I'm going to let you do B, the next slide. Okay, please complete B on your own, and I'll give you 1 minute to solve B. All right, so we have to use distributive property. Negative 5 times G, negative 5G, negative 5 times 4, right, minus 20. Now distribute on the other side. 3 times G, 3G. 3 times minus 4, good, minus 12. Now let's look for the smaller variable. Smaller variable is the negative 5G, so I'm going to have to add 5G. Now, if you did the 3G, you could still get the right answer as long as you did your steps correct. So negative 20 is greater than 5 plus 3 makes 8G. Constant. Next step, plus 12. So negative 20 plus 12 is negative 8. And then the last step is to get rid of that 8 by dividing. Don't forget, G goes first. So your answer is going to be G less than negative 1, because you got to reverse the greater than and make it a less because you switched the G and the 1 around. Okay. All right, finish copying that one down. And we're going to scroll up and do C. All right, here's C. Please solve C on your own. We got a lot of parentheses here, combining like terms. This should be one of the hardest problems you'll see in this unit. So if you can solve this one correctly, then you should be able to get any problem on a quiz or test correct. I'll give you a minute and a half to solve this one. All right, let's take a look at C. So we got a lot of distributive property to do first. 3 times t, 3t. 3 times 1 is 3. Let's do some distributive property over here. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And a negative times a negative t is going to make positive 4t. I hope you got that part right. Nothing happened over here on the left side. Now let's look for like terms. 3t plus 4t makes how much? Good, 7t. And 3 minus 8 is how much? Good, that's negative 5. And again, nothing happened on the other side. Now we can take a look for the smaller variable. The smaller variable is, right, 5t. So we're going to subtract 5t. So 3 is less than or equal to 2t minus 5. Okay, the next step is the constant, which is negative 5. So we're going to add 5. 3 plus 5 makes, good, 8. Let me scroll up. And the final step, divide by 2, and you get 4. And don't forget, t goes first. So switch the symbol when you write t is greater than 4. And that's your final answer. Finish copying this one down if you made any mistakes. Here's the whole problem again, along with the other one. Pause here if you need to. Otherwise, we're going to go on to the final slide. Okay, final slide. Empty set. I'd like you to do the first line. Please do the distributive property for this example. Do the distributive property only. I'll give you 30 seconds to copy this down and do the distributive property only. Okay, distributive property. Negative 7 times s is negative 7s. Negative 7 times 4 is negative 28. Plus 11s greater than 8s. And now we have to do distributive property over here on the right. Negative 2 times 2s is negative 4s. Negative 2 times 1 is negative or minus 2. Okay, please make corrections now. Now we're going to look at combining like terms. On the left over here, we have negative 7s and plus 11s. So 11 minus 7 makes how much? Right, 4s. And then the 28 is still there. Let's go over to the right side. Like terms, 8s minus 4s. 8 minus 4 makes, good, 4s. And then the minus 2 is still there. Now watch what happens when we Subtract the variables. Minus 4s from both sides. Negative 28 is greater than or equal to negative 2. Is negative 28 bigger or equal to negative 2? The answer is no, it's not. But unlike an equation, we're not going to write no solution. Instead, we have a different term for inequalities, and that term is the empty set, sometimes referred to as the null set. And if you wanted to write that as a symbol, you'd have to put the fancy brackets around it with a line through 0. That is the symbol for the empty set. There's no number that works or no solution for this problem, but we don't say no solution because it's a set problem, an inequality. So we can use the 0 with the line through it, the words empty set, or not as commonly used as the null set. All right, this concludes lesson 3.4. You should be able to complete your homework from this. If you have any other questions, see me in class. Good luck.